Hey, what are you doing on March 6th and 7th? How about making your way to DX3 in Toronto for a 2-day deep dive into digital marketing, digital advertising, and digital retailing? Along with a free exhibit hall, there are going to be over 40 sessions, including speakers from Microsoft, Salesforce.com, Google, Well.ca, Facebook, Lowe's, and Mountain Equipment Co-op. Come see what one attendee called a rare thing in the digital world. Register at www.dx3canada.com today. See you there. Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing, the most trusted podcast dedicated to the new business of location. And welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing. This is episode number 118. We're recording this on Friday, February 22nd. That's the year 2013. My name is Rob Woodbridge from Untethered TV, located in, well, the semi-warm nation's capital. That's the capital of Canada. Just so I remind Asif that the capital, in fact, is Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. How are you doing, Asif? Welcome, buddy.
I'm doing great. Actually got to be at home in town in Toronto for a few days and, involved with a couple conferences here. And our buddy Scott Kavitan from Urban Airship was in town. He actually came to Toronto, if you can believe it. I got to chat with him this morning, so I'm doing well. It's been a good week.
It's so funny. I've spent a lot of time with Scott and Urban Airship on Untethered.tv. I've done 3 episodes with him, and I've chronicled that company from the time they were 20 people to the time they're 150 people and growing and growing and growing. And I've never met the guy except for doing this, right? We got a packed show this time around, as usual. Got a very special guest. We talked about the app that he co-founded or co-created. It's Mark Kasdorf, the co-founder and the co-creator of an app called Timbre, which is a location-based live music app. It's really cool. It's awesome. Just launched, in North America and around the world. It was really only in about 5 centers when we talked about it, but now it's available worldwide. Got our Asif's fascinating app of the week, which is an app called Truckily. You'll have to stick around to hear about that, what that is. And we've got our 6 stories, including the LivingSocial disaster that is unfolding around a recent funding, plus our resource of the week around location-based marketing and data. But before we get into that, we want to talk about, thank our syndicating partners in Street Fight, and a brand new one, Phil Butler from Panel Vision PR. Phil, thank you for agreeing to host This Week in Location-Based Marketing on your website. If you want some content for your website, let us know. We'll flip you the embed code. You can spread the gospel on your website. Hey, it's one less post you have to write. I like that. Yeah.
There you go.
So, Asif, tell me what's going on with the world of location-based marketing. Some events coming up.
Yeah, well, we've got a few events happening in the next little bit. First is I'm off to Vegas this coming week for the world's biggest digital out-of-home conference, the Digital Signage Expo. So a huge event if you're in that industry, if you're in digital out-of-home or mobile, and digital out-of-home or any of that kind of stuff. So lots of discussion around mobile there, lots of discussion about NFC and how that's going to fit into, screens and all that kind of stuff. So it should be a great event. So that's the first part of the week. And then on the 28th, on the Thursday, in Atlanta, our LBMA Atlanta chapter is hosting an event in the evening. So, looking forward to that one as well. And then on March the 20th, I think it is. So a couple weeks later, we'll be in Berlin. Just announced a new meetup there. So all of that information can be found at thelbma.com/events, that and many more events. So if you're into events, you want to learn more about this stuff and you want to hang out with cool people in the industry and do some networking, this is, there's a good list there. Check it out.
We are going to be in the same city. We're going to be in Toronto for DX3 Canada on the 6th and 7th of March. So we implore you to come down. There is a trade show. You can see some of the greatest and latest technology. We'll be hanging around there over the couple of days. So if you're in Toronto, please just swing by and say hi. Track us down. I'm going to be doing a couple of panels and actually participating as a mobile expert down there for DX3 with Microsoft and Google. So good company. I think I actually am going to be standing in the middle of them, holding each other apart, holding them apart. Right? Yeah.
There you go. Somebody
does. Hey, listen, you, the fine listener, I'm talking to you right in your ear. I'm talking to you. We would really appreciate a review on iTunes. If you find any value in these podcasts, the other 117 that we've done, including this one, although there's no guarantees that you'll like this or not, but please, if you do, a review on iTunes is currency for us. We love that. It helps us. It helps, actually drive awareness of the podcast on a global scale. Don't keep this a secret. This isn't going to do any good if you keep this a secret. You want this to come out so that your customers find it, and then they'll come to you to actually do the services and implementation. So review us on iTunes. It does everybody a little good. And if you'd like any feedback, if you'd like to give us any feedback or any comments about what we've been doing here, if you'd like, we're going to say a few controversial things. I certainly am this episode. Why don't you have your say? We'd love to bring you onto the show on Untethered.tv/talk. And you can actually talk to us. Leave a 30-second clip. I can't stress that enough. Not 40, not 60, not 90, 30 seconds. And we will play it on the show. So please do that. And for those of you who called last time and left a 90-second clip, I'm sorry I can't play it. So please, 30 seconds. Untethered.tv/talk. Announcements done. Out of the way. Let's get into some of these stories, man. We're going to start today with Truckily. A Seif's fascination. Truckily. I don't know what it is about food, man.
Yeah, I like to eat. So at the end of the day, you can eat the regular stuff you eat at home, or you can eat when you're on the road. And I'm on the road a lot, and food trucks are a big part of is actually a huge growing part of the economy right now. I mean, especially in cities like New York and Chicago and places like that, there's just a growing culture actually around gourmet food truck, people hunting out cool food trucks and all sorts of different ethnic foods and whatnot. So Truckily is a new app. It actually, we were talking earlier, it hasn't officially launched yet, but it's the guys who built it are in Kansas City. And it's coming shortly. But the interesting thing about this space is there's a lot of apps emerging around this. There's Roaming Hunger is another one. There's another one called, I think it's just called Trucks, Trux. The whole space is just fascinating to me in that it's all about geo. It's all about saying where you are and then finding trucks around you that you can meet up at. I actually wrote an article probably a year ago now for Street Fight magazine on location-based marketing in the food truck circuit. And so just go Street Fight mag and food truck, and you'll find that article somewhere in the archives there. And brands are getting behind this too, because MasterCard did a project last summer in New York City where they connected with one of these apps, and basically, what you would do is every Friday, they would announce in a totally last-minute thing where this food truck was going to be, and then if you showed up, you got free lunch, like brought to you by MasterCard. Because those kinds of things are priceless, or whatever they say, right? So it's really interesting, this whole space. And Truckily's, as a service, as an app, I think is coming at it in some interesting ways too. In terms of it's not just where's the truck near me, but it's food trucks by category, food trucks by your tastes and different kinds of things. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is. I mean. It's not localized, right? Like that's one of the things. Is like, there is that on Front Street, for example, in Toronto. There is that crazy truck, that food truck that sits out in front of CBC, and it's always swamped. And I've done a lot of traveling in Asia, Southeast Asia, and most of the food that I ate was from not literally on the street, but it's where the locals eat, right? It's not where the tourists eat. I always got sick when I ate when the tourists eat, and I always didn't get sick. I never got sick when I ate where the locals ate, and most of it was from street vendors and street trucks. So this is not a localized thing. I think this is pretty neat. I don't know how you monetize this, but I guess we live in the app world and we don't have to monetize.
Yeah,
trucks. I mean, the margins on those trucks are not great, and so how do you can't really sell advertising, or else So, but
Yeah, but I do like the concept in general of, if you're the vendor, being able to broadcast out and
Yep.
reach people,
Yes.
based on mobile that are around you to draw customers in. I think there's a lot of value to that, and I think for the food truck connoisseur, that wants to try new things and find things around there, I think there's this nice match between vendor and customer, that is powered by mobile and location services in that context. So I like.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's pretty cool, and you should read that article written by Asif. If you're interested in these guys, go to Truckily. That's truckily.com. truckily.com, and that's Asif's app fascination for this week. Pretty cool. If you think that you should be in there, if you want to reach out and you have an app that is cool, that it focuses on the location-based marketing world that we can feature here, please let us know. Let us know, Rob at Untethered.tv or Asif at thelbma.com. All right, let's jump into these stories, Asif. They are dying to be spread. Dying to be spread. Our first story, this is really the power of location. It's such a simple concept, and when you distill location down to its essence, I think that something like this, where you mass an entire population to empower them to go out and take photos of dying lakes and dying rivers and polluted lakes and rivers, like Deng did through Weibo, which is, I guess, the equivalent to Twitter in China, right? This is one of those things that just shows you the power of location, the power of now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the, in a lot of cases with the big media companies that we work with at the LBMA, companies like CNN and folks like that, the interesting thing for me is a lot of those conversations center around, the leveraging of location capabilities in two streams. If you're a media company, you look at it and you go, well, how can we deliver content to people based on where they are, where the reader is, where the listener is, where the viewer is? So there's this kind of push, thinking around, the delivery of content tag, based on the location of the user. Then there's the reverse, which is, in the case of a company like CNN, you have iReport, you have Zeit, you have things like that, which is about, how do we actually generate content? How do we generate news and empower consumers to actually participate in the news creation, the content creation piece based on location. And so that's more the pull side. And that's what we're talking about here. So, Twitter, we've talked about previously on the show, Ushahidi, the open source platform for collecting data that's all location targeted. And that's effectively what, Deng is doing here with this Weibo thing is basically saying, look, there's an issue here. Let's bring, let's bring a light to this particular issue around what's happening in China with these rivers and all the trash and all this kind of stuff. And let's power people to kind of participate in the sharing of that content, and tagging it to location and, and photos and all that kind of stuff. For me, this is like what Instagram should do. You know what I mean? Like, in some respects, it's, how do you, when people say, how do you monetize Instagram? Well, this is the kind of thing that you need to be doing, right? You need to be taking platforms with that kind of user base and that kind of power, and actually using it in a way that you're doing something useful and beneficial to society and to the media industry.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. It's just these guys, I mean, there's such a deep gulf between Silicon Valley and the Silicon Valley mentality and what's happening here with this, right? So the story is that Deng, who is a journalist and an activist in China, put out basically didn't believe the Chinese media saying that these rivers were not being polluted by big industry. And so he put out a post and basically on Weibo and said, how is the river in your hometown? Well, you're home for the holidays. Take a photo of the river or stream in your hometown and upload it to Weibo for us to see. And the photos that came up, and now these, I'm just going to show these up here right now. These are only the negative photos, right? So these are not the photos that that came back. There was apparently a number of photos that came back that said this. This is how beautiful my lake is, how beautiful my river is, and unpolluted. But if you look at these. For you who are listening, you can't see this, but picture rivers and lakes full of trash, just basically streaming trash down it, completely polluted. And I don't think that we're surprised by that. But this is a pretty amazing feat here. That the popularity as a result of this was incredible, and it just shows you that citizen journalism and citizen this kind of citizen engagement can happen around great root causes. And I always think about Project Noah when I think of these kind of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just I think there's so much room for more of this kind of stuff, and I think we're living in an age now where the average consumer that is smartphone enabled, social media friendly, that consumer, that demographic, wants to participate in these kinds of things, and quite frankly, the media companies aren't doing enough to empower it, and I think that's where there's big opportunity to actually drive. When we talk about the failures of some mobile platforms, in terms of just not getting enough user base or enough traction to kind of be appealing for a brand, from a monetization perspective, you start to do something like this, and all of a sudden people just go, well, sure, I'll download the app because I want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I want to participate. This is the kind of thing that doesn't get you 1 million users. This kind of thing gets you 100 million users. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so.
But the thing that strikes me though is that it's not an app, right? It wasn't built on it.
Yeah, whether it's an app or a mobile service or whatever it is. It has mass appeal.
Yes, and it was enabled through the technology, but nobody had to build an app to get this out and do it very quickly. I mean, they leveraged an infrastructure that was already there, like we do with Twitter all the time. And I think that's an interesting play. It just shows you the simpler you can, the creating something with the least amount of friction is exactly what you should be doing. And if it warrants an app, use an app. If it warrants using Twitter, use Twitter. Instagram, the same thing. You can do this in Instagram. It's much more difficult to connect with people. That's all. So that's pretty amazing. You can just do a search for either Deng or Weibo or water pollution, all of those, and you'll find the stories and the photos that I posted with a bunch more. Pretty amazing. It's certainly, hopefully this is, you can leverage this and lobby for cleaner lakes and rivers in China, but based on those photos, it looks pretty devastating. And the interesting thing is that even the Minister of Resources came back and said, well, yeah, those are in fact polluted. Yes, no doubt about those rivers and lakes. They are polluted, but those are human polluted. Those are as a result of overpopulation, and the ecosystem can't handle the number of people that live in these dense populations. This isn't big industry polluting it with radioactive waste, but there are some cities that kids are bathing in it and they're using it to clean their dishes and their clothes, and they're getting red splotches and high cancer rates, and those are the ones that it's the hidden pollution that you can't see, which is what's devastating. So I applaud this effort. Deng Fei. Very cool. All right, our second story. This is frivolous and fancy-free from something that was a little bit more, pertinent. But this is KLM. I love KLM. I don't fly them, but I love them.
It's my favorite airline from a technology, social media implementation perspective. I mean, these guys are just willing to try everything and take chances, and they're the company that every new tech startup and vendor loves, because you can go to them and you got a good chance that they're going to try something.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Target KLM. So tell us about KLM and their what is this thing called? The must see map.
Must see map. So it's a little program created by one of their agencies, a company called Code d'Azur. And basically what they've done is they said, look, people who travel on KLM, and you're thinking about traveling on KLM, by connecting with Facebook and Twitter data, what they're doing is they're looking at where your friends have traveled. Recently, or over some period of time, and they will then kind of build these paper maps that kind of map out for you where your friends have been, and actually ship these maps to you. And it's an interesting concept. What I think is really interesting about it, though, and what I like about it, the paper map thing is, it's kitschy and maybe fun. I don't know. I'm not sure it's something I would do. But what I like about this concept, and what I think they're going for here, is the premise that, look, if I'm planning on going on a holiday, I'm planning on taking a trip somewhere. And we talked about this probably like in episode 3 or something on another front. But when you're planning on taking a trip and going on a holiday, typically you do a lot of research if it's a place you've not been to before, or you go to like travel guides or Photos or, one of these kinds of things to kind of find out what are the hot spots, what are the things to see and do in that particular place. And it's one thing to kind of rely on that information from a guide. It's another thing to, get that same kind of information from your friends who you know and trust who've actually been to these places. And I think that's a bit of what they're going for here, is to say, look, let's kind of tap into the friend networks around you and understand where they've been and where they've traveled. Let's build you a map of potential destinations of where you could go and fly on KLM and to get there. So I like this concept of kind of, leveraging that location data in this context coming from Facebook and Twitter, looking at that friend filter around potential travel for you and kind of, tying that together. So it's a nice implementation.
Yeah, and the fact that they mailed you a map, I think is pretty cool, because it actually includes all the social side to it, all your friends and comments that they've had in the different locations, and it's like the old days of CAA where you used to say, listen, I'm driving to Florida, and I need a map, and they would assemble a package for you and then ship it off to you, and you'd get it 3 or 4 weeks later, and it would be your map to get to Florida with all the places that you wanted to go, and I kind of like this. The challenge I have is 3 weeks is like an eternity. And that's just way too long to wait for something like this, and especially even if it is kitschy. But they should be doing something on the mobile side where instead of having to wait for the map, you should be able to, and here's the best thing that they should do. KLM, take this and use it. You should be able to get your app. Here's your trip app. And I don't mean like connectivity. Like when we go into the States from Canada, or Canada, you come up to Canada from the States, it is prohibitively costly to use your phone, right? It is stupid expensive, so don't do it. But here's KLM. They could do something like, I could create a compartmentalized app that has everything in it. I just download the app. It has everything that I need in it. If I hit a Wi-Fi spot, I can get some more information. But wouldn't that be the coolest thing ever, is if KLM created that travel app for me, like the map, but they just brought it into an app that was built just for me. They send me a link. I go and download the app from the App Store, and it is my trip app. That is the best branding you could have. It would stay on there. I could highlight all of my trips that I've ever taken within this app, and it would be incredible branding for KLM and a great way for them to increase reach and retention and potentially sales through these apps to customers and non-customers alike. I think they're just missing the boat here just a little bit. I think that they went like 80% there. I think that they just have that little piece left, and then this will be a killer strategy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it makes a ton of sense. And whether they do that as their own app or they white label something from TripAdvisor or somebody else, I think there's a lot of things that could be done there. So
kudos, right?
Anyhow, but good initiative. Love KLM.
All about KLM. Where's Air Canada in this? Like, God, they could do it. Anyway.
They could.
All right, our third story from the skies and big expanse and big locations all the way into indoor location. This is a huge market, a burgeoning market. Here's an Austrian company that has raised multiple six-figure investment, and it's a company called Indoo.rs.
Yeah, first of all, I like the name. It says what it is, and so for those out there who aren't viewing it and just listening, it's Indoo.rs, Indoo.rs. So another indoor location play. We know this is a hot space. These guys are coming at it from a slightly different perspective, which is why I pulled this one out this week. They're not providing a platform to retailers to analyze foot traffic patterns and all that kind of stuff. They're not pushing deals through their platform, based on where you are in the store. What they're doing is they're building a technology layer and effectively licensing this as an SDK type of model that other people can build into their handsets and other kinds of things. And the other thing I like about it is it's not just Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or things like that, which most of the platforms are based on today. They're actually drawing in data from other parts of the device itself, like the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the compass, to help sort of improve the accuracy. So they're actually combining all of the sensors in that smartphone, not just relying on one, to kind of figure out the exact position. So that's a really interesting play. We know some of the other guys like Ericsson and Qualcomm, and some of these guys are doing some of this kind of stuff. But it's nice to see that independent companies out there are trying to, push the envelope around this, and then going back to the handset manufacturers and saying, look, this is how you should really do it. So that's kind of cool.
It is, and they let they've classified their competition as like kind of Microsoft and Google and big guys, right? And there's no hardware requirements in here. You don't have to hook things up, and you don't have to outfit a mall, do you, for this? Right.
No.
Well, that makes it easy. I like it. The domain is incredible, and how do I mean?
No, this is being driven off the device itself. So yeah.
So how do you win in this space? Is it just there's enough business out there for everybody to be a part of this? When you see how many companies that are coming out, and I think the sheer size of this market, the opportunity of this market, and the importance of this market, the indoor location market, is incredible. Is there room for small companies like these that raise multiple six-figure investments versus guys like Google, who, by the end of 2013 are going to be releasing their Google glasses and have all that stuff embedded?
No, I think there's definitely room. I think these are the kinds of companies that, they go out, they get some good traction with some base customers. They get a few big retailers on board using their system. They start to generate some revenue. This is the kind of stuff that actually generates revenue, by the way, unlike some of the other things that we talk about on this show. But we'll come to one that's not still having problems generating revenue, or making profit. Yes. I should say. They generate lots of revenue. It's the kind of company that, they get some good traction, they move along, and then these are the kinds of companies that a Qualcomm or an Ericsson or somebody just buys because they've got great IP, they've got great technology, kind of like the Yahoo alike thing we talked about last week.
Yeah, and a little bit of market traction just to validate the market, and then they go and take it. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's cool. I mean, Indoo.rs, very cool domain name. Just type in Indoo.rs into the browser, and it's indoo.rs. I love these country domains. That's how I got Tavula, Untethered.tv. Very cool. All right, those first three stories, we're going to take a break here. We're going to bring in our guest, which is Timbre co-founder Mark Kasdorf. I had a great opportunity to sit down. There is this is a long episode on Untethered. It's up there now. It's like it's about an hour and 17 minutes, so 77 minutes. But it covers quite a bit of ground around what he's doing with his Intrepid. He's got an Intrepid brand of companies, and he's got an app development company. He's got Timbre, which is a separate company, and he's also got Intrepid Labs, which is an incubation space and a shared office space in Massachusetts, in Cambridge, in Massachusetts. And but there's a segment about 35 minutes around, and we're not going to play that. Don't worry, I'm not going to play the whole thing right now. I'll play about 6 minutes of it, where we talk about Timbre and the challenges that he's had around Timbre and the opportunities and how it came about. And he literally, one of the best lines in this interview, if you were out there trying to build a location-based application and you're trying to find some funding, and he put it so succinctly. He said, you know what, I didn't want to spend 6 months going to raise money for this app and then go and build it. What I wanted to do was spend 5 months and 30 days basically building it and challenging it and getting users of it and distributing it and getting it out in the market. And then I wanted to spend 1 day raising the money, and he did just that. Anyways, the story is pretty amazing. I was really impressed with Mark and his team, and so we're just going to play a little clip of that and come back on the flip side. But this is Mark Kasdorf, the co-founder of Timbre. Well, the guy who introduced me to Timbre, Patrick Reynolds from Triton Digital, right? So they do, among other things, is that they're helping radio stations move into this digital world, into this mobile world. And I asked him just at the end of the episode that I did with him, I said, so, I mean, what's caught your fancy? Like, what are you excited about? And he's like, I thought it was going to be something like radio technology or something like that. And he goes, okay, you got to see this app. It's called Timbre. It's a band discovery app. And I'm like, no, I meant about your business. He's, no, you got to see this app. The same thing, right? Is that that's what you love to hear. Those guys that he's not even related to you guys, and he's passionate about what you guys are doing. And so I can understand that, and that's what you want to have. Definitely what you want to have.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, it was. I'll tell you, we launched it on September 7th. Apple made it the #1 new and noteworthy app for the iPhone 5 launch, which was just incredible. We had no pre-existing connection to Apple. They found it. They liked it. We actually dropped Timbre into a wholly owned subsidiary of Intrepid on September 20th, not because we were raising money, but because we knew Timbre was more than an app. You know, it's bigger than an app. It's more of a concept. It could be a company. So it didn't hurt us any. It cost us a couple $1,000s. We dropped it into a subsidiary just so that we were as flexible as humanly possible based on what might come in the future.
So what do you do with this? Like, so you've invested a lot of time and blood, sweat, tears. You're maintaining this app, which kind of goes against the convention of your other business, right? Which is your consulting arm. So you're maintaining this. You're doing support. You're doing all the marketing on all of these things, which is a completely different piece to what your bread and butter is. So you put all this effort into it. How do you turn this into revenue? Do you turn this into revenue? Is this just a showpiece for you? What do you do with something like this?
So we figured Timbre, the minute Apple made it a new and noteworthy app, you know, not that that's the holy grail.
It is the holy grail. Come on. Like what were your numbers before and after that?
It was phenomenal. I mean, when I say it wasn't the holy grail, I just mean that being featured by Apple is the holy grail. Being a new and noteworthy app is, you know, something slightly below the holy grail. So I'll give you two interesting numbers that I don't think I've given anyone else.
Sweet, exclusive. Everybody, listen up. Listen up.
Yeah. So interesting number one. We had TechCrunch was kind enough to write a piece about it. You know, gave them a little advance notice. They thought it looked cool. They were great. They were really kind to it. We got 2,000 downloads within 6 hours of that TechCrunch piece running.
Okay, that's good.
Which was good numbers. You know, for an app that, you know, we did no PR, no marketing, it was great. A week later, we got featured by Apple, and we did 10,000 downloads in an hour. You know, off the new and noteworthy, right? So it was just explosive. You know, people went nuts. The people that found it loved it. You know, there is absolutely positively no better way to have an app get noticed than being featured by Apple.
It is the amount of control that they have is incredible. And you guys didn't lobby them. You didn't go to them. Did you ask anybody why? Like, why do you think it worked?
We didn't lobby them. We kind of sort of went to them, right? So I did a bunch of networking in Boston trying to find people who knew Apple or knew someone at Apple, and I eventually found a guy who was really, really helpful. Who said, look, you know, I know someone in a different department in the App Store. It was in the iTunes affiliate department. And he said, you know, send me some screenshots, send me a description, I'll forward it to them, and if they think it's interesting, maybe they'll forward it over to the Apple category team. So that's what we did. You know, he BCC'd me on that email, and I would imagine it helped. You know, Apple, you know, people in the category team found it really fast. We were featured about new and noteworthy about a week after we submitted it. But that's kind of the lobbying we did.
So why do you think they chose it?
I think they chose it because it was different, because it was unique, because it was really, really interesting. You know, Apple for a long time would only feature things that were kind of complied with the HIG, the Human Interface Guidelines, and matched their aesthetic. And I think they've morphed a bit. You know, you can't do things that are confusing, but I think they like it when people push the envelope and it's not another dual stick shooter or another list view that, you know, newsreader, you know, another app in a really tired category. You know, we push the envelope in a way, and I think they really like that.
So, I mean, let me kind of put a conclusion to this, is that, I mean, when you're building an app and it's a unique interface, right, and a unique experience, something that is very much Apple-like, or something that is innovative. And this seems like a no-brainer now that I'm speaking it, and I should have probably kept this thought in my head. But that's really the way that Apple is going to, or anybody is going to find you, and it's going to stick, right? I mean, it just goes without saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, the way to get featured is, this sounds like a tautology, and it sounds like really useless advice, but the best way to get featured is to build something awesome.
That's so true. I could have just said that, but I'm glad you concur with that. You know, it sounds so simple, right? But it's so hard to do.
Yeah, no, and I think, you know, I'm not ashamed to say that 70% of building something awesome is luck.
Well, I want to thank Mark for allowing us to use that clip and obviously coming on to Untethered.tv for a much longer episode. If you do want to spend some time, and I mean spend some time, very fascinating guy. He's got some great anecdotes towards the end of this episode. You can find it on Untethered.tv. It's episode number 442. It's up there. But a few of the stories that he talked about, the things that he did around his app to actually get people to use the app more and get deeper into the app, are lessons that every one of us should be learning. So I implore you. One of the things that I've done on Untethered.tv is actually put a clickable index of key themes throughout the entire episode. So if, for example, you just want to jump to that one little piece, which is the 20-second thing on this index, you can actually pull it up and just listen to that 2 or 3 minutes and then go on your way. But I implore you, go to Untethered.tv to check that out. The whole episode, number 442, which is pretty incredible. All right, back to the stories. Asif, this one might take forever. I don't even know how to bring this one up. It is coupons and LivingSocial raising $110 million. The controversy that this kind of sparked was incredible, man. Like, accusations flying that this wasn't actually an equity investment. This was debt, and it crushed all of the equity that any of the founders and any of the employees might have had, and the fact that this was a last-minute investment to stave off bankruptcy. What is going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about this company a lot. We've talked about the space a lot. I mean, it's a tough space, right? I mean, the models are just not sustainable. The valuations are ridiculous around these companies. $110 million is this round, all coming from obviously the existing investors. It's hard to think that this is not an emergency round of debt financing. I read in one of the things here, Tim O'Shaughnessy, who's their CEO, the quote is, "Yes, it's a down round, but no, this was not an emergency debt infusion with oppressive terms." What does that mean? Like,
I don't know. I do not know because he went on to say that there were some special circumstance, or there was some special clauses in the shares that were issued. So. Debt financing versus investment, but flat out, what he's saying is that this is a 7.5% investment for a straight up swap, $110 million for 7.5% of the company. So it is a down round, but I mean, this is like the controversy fueling this. They said that they had $45 million in the bank, but their burn is incredible. They do $500 million of revenue. Their valuation is well over $1 billion still, even with this investment. But how do you sugarcoat what's going on? I don't think you can.
You can't. And the issue here is when this kind of thing happens, the next thing that happens is all of a sudden the key employees start to leave, right? And that's just the downward spiral from here. You just know it's coming, right? So you're going to start to see the defections, on the senior team. I would think within weeks.
Well, what he's saying is that he wrote, obviously this was serious enough that he had to do an internal memo, and the internal memo obviously ended up on TechCrunch and a number of other media outlets. And what he's saying, he's trying to just basically appease or slow that, that from happening. But what he talks about in this is that obviously this is a very significant accusation. The accusation comes from Privco, who says that this is basically it for LivingSocial. And I think that there's challenges, because if O'Shaughnessy actually lied in that memo, there are going to be class action suits, and if this is really a debt financing versus an equity financing, and there is no killing of the original investors' money that went into it, if that actually turns out to be true, that guy is screwed. He's opened up for litigation all over the place. But it's a very serious challenge that these guys have had, because their growth depends on capital right now, and because they're carrying all these losses, and it doesn't sound like they're executing effectively, even with $500 million of revenue. A company struggling.
Well, yeah, but Groupon has lots of revenue too. But we know there's just tons of challenges with this model. Yeah. These guys need to figure out their mobile strategy. They need to figure out their location piece. They need to figure out how they tie this to other things other than here's my daily deal, which we know is not a it's not a sustainable market, and we know big brands are pushing away from it. The article that we were talking about before this that was published on Digiday this morning, which I contributed to on the sort of the demise of the check-in as far as it pertains to big retailers and brands. The big guys out there are not using LivingSocial. They're not using Groupon. They're not using Foursquare. And they're not using them because they know how to do it better. Number one, they've got better better tools available to them in terms of mobile and location strategies. They see how it fits into their overall media, by their media buys and their campaigns, and these kinds of things. The market that's left when you take the real companies out of the business are all the startups, right? All the small businesses, all the local restaurants and the hair salons and the nail places and the whatever. I mean, and that's a big market without question. But we've heard all the horror stories over and over again about they use it once, they don't and they don't use it again. And I think that's a bit of the challenge that these companies face, right? Is what is the next market? How do they take mobile into that? And the problem is that a daily deal, in an email inbox works for a lot of small businesses. That works, right? But those same small businesses that they've been able to attract and sign up don't know how to do mobile. Don't have the budget to do mobile, are quite frankly, some of them aren't even interested in mobile, right? So, I think that's the challenge is how do you, it's one thing to say, big brands get mobile and location to some extent, and LivingSocial doesn't get mobile and location. And then you've got their customer base, which is the small business, which, gets daily deal, but doesn't know how, doesn't even see the, can't get to the value of mobile and location because they just don't have the budgets and they don't have the people and they don't have the stuff to execute it. So that's the problem of where these companies sit is in the middle of that. They can't go up market because the brands don't want to work with them. They can, the market that they're in, it's difficult to sort of widen the scope of what they can offer.
It's compounded by the fact as well that what we saw at the very beginning when they were successful and let's face it, they had their glory moment, was when the brands didn't understand what they were doing, and now we've seen this transition where the brands would very freely give away their brand title to a company like LivingSocial or anybody or Groupon, and now what they're doing is reclaiming that brand. They don't want their apps on somebody else's apps. They want to do their own app, and they understand. They're getting by our resource of the week. They're understanding how to leverage location much better than Groupon and LivingSocial are doing right now. So I think that this is the big challenge, and that they're facing LivingSocial, because what's happening is that those companies are now hiring VPs and directors of mobile, right, into the company as at a senior level, because they understand that that's a pivot point for their company. And if they don't have anybody in there, they're going to have to rely on LivingSocial, and that's not exactly what you want to do. And the other side of this, Asif, O'Shaughnessy is saying as well, that he's back to that conversation around the financing, is that he's talking about the valuation like they're going to go public, right? He said, this is a down round, and yes, for sure, it's a down round. Everybody expected it to be a down round, but our cap is over $1 billion. Our run rate is $500 million of revenue. So when we go public, it shouldn't have an impact on you, the shareholder who is an employee. But the likelihood of a company like LivingSocial actually going public, very non-existent, right? So he's talking about the IPO to try to placate that startup mentality that we see right now in LivingSocial, and the fact that these people are invested, the employees are invested money and time and effort, and that's not ever going to happen. So the people are going to be leaving in droves because they realize, look, this company's not going public, and if it does, I mean, there's nothing to sustain a growth, an increase in a stock price. It's a ridiculous offering. So. My condolences to LivingSocial. This just doesn't sound so good, right?
I'm right with you on that. So.
Ooh, okay, LivingSocial raising $110 million. It's one of those things that you should be excited about. But again, you don't celebrate the raise. You celebrate your profit. You celebrate growth. You celebrate revenue. You celebrate all the things that you should as a business, not the raise. The raise is not the victory, right? It's what it leads to that is victory, and it just doesn't sound like this is a good thing. They've raised over what? Almost like $300 million. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
God. All right. LivingSocial, you know where to go for them. I love your thoughts on this. Where do you see this going? Does LivingSocial survive? What do they have to do? I think that they have to call Asif and I. We'll come down there, tag team this thing right into shape.
All over it.
Fucking fire people. We'll do the stuff that has to get done inside of that company. Right? Anyway. All right. Yes. Well, there goes LivingSocial as a sponsor. Nah. All right, our fifth story. This is a company called Wanderu. I never thought that the industry, that I would ever want something like this. But apparently, people are looking for ways to get around, buses and such, and they want to be the Kayak of the bus travel. There's aspirations there. It's Wanderu.
It's a growing space. We're seeing all sorts of location-based apps and services like this launch in subset categories of travel and hospitality, whether it's buses or bikes or, hotel rooms or whatever it is. I mean, we're seeing more and more of these kinds of things. We actually covered a company on here a while back called BusBud. You might remember that, Rob. Which is a similar kind of thing. So this is this one's called Wanderu. I can't help when I saw that name and I said it a couple times. It made me think of Pokeroo. Anyhow, Wanderu. Speaking of which, sorry, I have to. I got to put a Canadian moment in now. So I got to put a Canadian moment in, and so if you're not Canadian, you won't know this. If you didn't grow up in the '80s, you won't know this per se. But I read a story this morning. Target is about to launch in Canada. Big thing. For Target to come up to Canada.
Taking over the Eaton stores. Yeah.
Yeah. Zeller stores. HBC's Zeller stores. Anyway, so as of next month, there's going to be Target in Canada. They've been working on this for months and months. They're apparently going to run their first TV commercial in Canada during the Oscars this weekend. And they've licensed for the commercial, the music for the commercial is the theme song from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Really?
Yep. And it's the first time that song's ever been licensed to anybody.
And Fred Rogers has been dead for like 20 years.
Yeah. So anyhow, a little side note there, but I thought you'd like that one.
You might get the Super Bowl commercials down there, you who are listening from the United States. We get Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood repurposed for Target launches on the Oscar night. Jealous much?
There you go.
If you live within the Windsor corridor, you live in Detroit, maybe you can pick up that feed, huh? Yeah. All right, back to Wanderu.
So, anyhow. Back to Wanderu. So, described as the Kayak for bus bookings. This is all about these. So these guys have partnered up with some of the great companies. So Megabus, Greyhound, Bolt Bus. A lot of the bus services. It's only focused at the moment on the Northeast U.S. market. They're planning on being nationwide across the U.S. by the end of the year. They're one of the companies that's been picked in the innovative technology category for South by Southwest in a couple weeks. So it looks like they've got everything going for them. If you're looking to book a bus trip, check out Wanderu.
Check out Wanderu. How do you spell that? Wanderu. Wanderu. Wanderu.com. Wanderu. It's one of the, I don't take buses. I'm a train guy. I love the train. I can't get enough of the train. And really some of the fares in Canada anyways, between Ottawa and Toronto, $39 one way. It's crazy. It's bus fare rates. You can't even drive for that much, for that little, between the two cities. So I'm not a bus guy, but I'm sure if I was, this would be helpful to me. But
yes.
It's not something that I will. Yeah, it's not something that I will use. I will gladly put my kids on.
Definitely in the student market. I know, I'm not a bus guy now, but I know when I was in university, back and forth, home when I didn't have a car, at certain points, I'd be taking the bus all the time.
Yeah.
So
well, here's a perfect example of that. So Wanderu, the Kayak for bus travel, very interesting. Kayak for those airlines and I think that this bus is now becoming a little bit. It's not oversaturated. It was underserved, so these companies are emerging. It's good. Wanderu.com. Okay, last story. Something that's so near and dear to our heart and our bellies. the things that we look forward to every time. At least we did. I think that Mr. Christie changed the recipe on at least up here in the Girl Guide cookies up in Canada. But these are the Girl Scouts. They're getting all location and like mobile transaction on us. These guys are high tech little belly snipers. The little Girl Guides go out there, cute, all dressed up in their outfits, not their outfits, their uniforms, and they come knock on your door, and you can't help but buy like 30 boxes of these things, and then you sit in front of the TV and just like and then you wonder, they create a scarcity that is unbelievable, but they're getting all sophisticated with their technology, man.
Yeah, it's a great story. So this is Girl Scouts of USA. My daughter's a Girl Guide as well, and so we got the cookies over here. So Rob, when you need a box, I'll let you know. Happy to.
Man, just ship them now, right? Like I'll put my orders in now.
Yeah, but see, up in Canada, it's different between the fall and the spring.
Yeah.
Like in the fall, you get the mint
Those are
chocolate
good, though. Those are
cookies.
good.
And in the spring, you get the traditional sort of white and chocolate ones. So, but anyhow. This is cool. So this is apparently, they've done their research on cookie sales and how this works for the Girl Guides. And apparently the number one reason cited for not purchasing Girl Guide cookies is that potential customers don't know where to find, their local Girl Scout. So people want the stuff. They just can't find where to get it. So here comes the app, the Cookie Finder app. That lets you find nearby, sellers, nearby Girl Guides in your neighborhood that have cookies to sell you.
So you can run them down.
What more can you want, right?
I like this. I like this simply because you're right. It's traditional. It's old school. They knock on your door. In Canada, at least, they knock on your door and to sell you the cookies, or somebody who knows somebody who sells them in your office. But I've often stopped. I'm driving down the street, and I've often stopped because I saw a Girl Scout or a Girl Guide walking down with their boxes, and it's like, hey, and there's crazy Rob running after her with chasing her with money, trying to get some cookies. Right? It just seems a little. Well, now that I think
Now, I mean, the only thing I would say that's missing from this, the other piece of this is, it's one thing to find somebody around you that can sell you the cookies. The other thing that Girl Guides should be doing here is incorporating some kind of mobile payment capability like Square.
I think they said that they are. They're using Pega systems to do the payments, so that they're actually you're handing your credit card sometimes to a Girl Guide, and who else could you trust more than a Girl Guide to process it? And I think they did that.
Okay, I didn't see that part, so I must have missed that. But
yeah,
I love it though. I mean, this is great. So only in the U.S. Girl Guides of Canada. Got to get your act together.
Let's do this thing.
Come on.
So I have one piece of strategy that Girl Guides could do right now, and here's the thing: is that I know that they create artificial scarcity, right? These cookies are wrapped in a different veneer when you go to your grocery store right now. You can go and get the same cookie everywhere, right? But it's that exclusivity of getting one in the spring and in the fall, and I love that. But hey, you know what that app should do? It should allow me to pre-purchase. Here's the perfect strategy for you. Leverage mobile so that I pre-purchase my stuff, right? So that I don't have to go chase a girl down the middle of the street, because that's pretty much frowned on, these days. Let me pre-pay for them. Let me buy my 10 boxes. Let me do it right away, and then you just deliver them. Put them in my garage. Knock on the door. Drop my Girl Guide cookies off, and I don't want to have to see you. I just think that you're missing out on an opportunity here. I love the old school approach, but you can't take this old school approach of knocking on the door and a new school approach of a location-based marketing initiative with an app and all that kind of stuff, and not let me buy ahead of time. And I think it's great. Because if you told me that, listen, you buy the 10 boxes today, and then, hey, if you pre-buy, we'll give you 10% discount for the fall, these guys will rack up cash. They will rack up cash. They will be the biggest company on the planet as a result of that. But right now, I think they're limiting it, because I know lots of people would buy that way. And the inconvenience of me having to send you money and you shipping those cookies to me in Ottawa, not going to happen, right?
Right.
So... And then it leads me to wonder, why don't they just...
we'll just send you some cookies anyways,
okay.
Rob. It's all good.
But why don't they just do it all year round? I don't get that. Let's get into this. Let's make it a business. And but I think that the app is a good start, and certainly a good lesson for those Girl Guides that are out there trucking around, accepting credit card payments and looking how technology is changing the world. I think it's pretty cool. So good on them, and get on it, Canada. That was our light story. I like it. I like it. I like the innovation. You know, I don't have any girls, but I do like Girl Guide cookies.
There you go.
So 6 stories, 1 special guest, a fascinating app in Truckily. The only thing we have is our resource, which is, I think, a stellar resource that really demonstrates that, I think that brands are starting to understand that location is very, very, very important. Wouldn't you say, Asif?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an article published by eMarketer, and it factors in data from 2 studies, actually, one from eConsultancy and the other one from Verve Mobile, which was just launched last week. And both of these studies are great. So if you get a chance, check the studies directly out. But, there's some of the stats in here are really interesting. So the eConsultancy report, 27% of companies worldwide plan to implement location-based marketing in 2013, 34% intend to invest in mobile advertising. So, I mean, that's a pretty big number, 27%, I think, from a global perspective. A brand's going to do this. And then the Verve study, they looked at it and they said that found that the percentage of campaigns using geofencing or geo-aware targeting has more than doubled from 17% in 2011 to 36% in 2012. So, we're seeing the growth. We know location's important. That's why we do this show. We talk about it every week. But now we got some great data to back it up too.
Yeah, no, that jump is pretty amazing, isn't it? It just seems like that for the last year we've been climbing this hill where we've been saying, listen, it's so important. You got to do this. You as a brand, you got to understand. Location is very important, and location-aware data is very important, and it's critical to driving people into your business. And all of a sudden, it just now it's got its own momentum. And for people who are out there not doing that, what's stopping you? Well, you're wasting your money if you're not selective in where you're advertising and how you're advertising, and who you're advertising to. So, yeah, big jumps. Love it. So if you're interested in that, go to emarketer.com or just do a search for real-time location data. Get a bigger slice of mobile targeting. That's a mouthful. Why don't you just go to Untethered.tv, where this episode is, or thelbma.com, and find the resource there.
Absolutely.
All right, done. 6 stories, special guest, good feature, and a featured app, and our resource of the week. Episode number 118 is nailed. Can't complain about this one. If you have a complaint, reach out. Untethered.tv/talk. Leave us your voicemail. Did we do this one too long? Do you agree with our LivingSocial assessment? And hey, what about KLM? Anybody out there used it? Leave us your response. If you've got the map, take a picture of the map. God, I'd love to see that. So send it our way, and we will feature it in the episode. Anything else, Asif, or can we close this one?
No, I think we're good. It's you got me hungry. I'm thinking about cookies now. So I think we're time to sign off here.
All right. So last plea: head to iTunes if you are, or any of your podcasting software. Give us a review. Except for if it's a 1 or 2 star review. In that case, send us an email and let us know what we can do to change that on you. But please, 4 and 5 star reviews are very welcome. Leave us a note there as well. Really appreciate it if you do that. But we will be back for episode number 119 next week. And we'll appreciate you coming back and checking it out. Asif, have a safe week. Good travels, man.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, everybody, we'll see you next week.